weeks. It's taken me 2 years and back picking 7 days now. So it's time to try to go for number 2. I'll be ready to give birth every now and then. So, but I know the Gary did. Okay, good. Where did the others go?
On the sheet you're right, you know.
Wife and I are going to Australia for a vacation. A few days.
I think she left, she was headed in that direction.
We're gonna go to Hawaii on the 10th anniversary, which is in September, but we're gonna go in October.
Okay.
If something came through, yes, it was not me, so it must have been Pentagon.
That's neat.
I'm very jealous.
Yeah.
It's a trip that I want to go on.
Well, will you stop in Hawaii on your way through?
Who would?
You should.
Okay.
But, you know, see, we have friends. So I'm like,
Yeah. Give it to
that'll be the next time. She wants to go to Hawaii first, so that's kind of where that's at. Not ready to make reservations.
Where do you want to go?
Yeah,
Where in Hawaii do you want to go?
I want to start right there at,
something
right there for the naval base, right there. Right there. Yeah, right there. No, 2 minutes yet. Terry's supposed to give you one.
I'll just talk to you. Just to get you know.
He does, but I asked Terry for it. That doesn't mean we're gonna go.
When did this room become the media room? When did this room become the main briefing room for the world? When did it hearing? Was it the same one behind the hard pass 10 years ago?
No, we moved over here. What's up? I moved us over here. We're getting ready to do the renovation of that in the building.
Electrician's nightmare. Rewire a whole unit all over again. Then again, that's what we get paid for.
Stays right.
Two-minute warning. Come out.
2 minute warning, 2 minute warning.
Just a reminder, turn off all cell phones, pagers, Blackberries, camera speakers, bureau phones, and the other audio producing device will interfere with recording of the briefing. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Major Matt Morgan with Headquarters Marine Corps Public Affairs. Welcome to this briefing on the establishment of the Marine Corps Wounded Warrior Regiment. This briefing today will be on the record. Before I introduce today's briefer, I have a few remarks to explain a bit about why we're here today. In November 2006, General James Conway, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, directed the establishment of the Wounded Warrior Regiment. The regiment's purpose would be to track and assist wounded Marines and sailors, facilitate assistance for family members, and add greater discipline and continuity to taking care of our own. Since that time, the Marine Corps has taken many of the steps necessary to make the Commandant's vision a reality, and as of April 1st, the regimental command is in place. Today, I have the privilege of introducing the first commanding officer of the Marine Corps Wounded Warrior Regiment, Colonel Gregory A. Boyle, United States Marine Corps. Colonel Boyle has most recently commanded the 3rd Marine Regiment and was personally selected by the Commandant for this important assignment. Colonel Boyle will brief you this morning on the regiment's mission, his vision for the command, and the way ahead. The Colonel has 30 minutes for today's briefing, and additionally we have a small group of subject matter experts from various staff sections who will remain after to help field any detailed questions that the Colonel is not able to get to. I'll now turn it over to Colonel Boyle, who will make a brief opening statement before taking questions.
Good morning. I am Colonel Greg Boyle, and I am the commanding officer of the Marine Corps' new Wounded Warrior Regiment. Before I open the floor to questions, I would like to make a brief statement which is going to outline the purpose and the basis of the regiment. The mission of the Wounded Warrior Regiment is to provide and facilitate assistance to wounded, ill, and injured Marines and sailors and their family members throughout their phases of recovery. Some of the main functions of the Wounded Warrior Regiment include supporting the Marines and the sailors as they navigate the Medical Evaluation Board and Physical Evaluation Board processes, assist them with information and in the processing of traumatic service members' group life insurance claims, providing information and referrals to them and their family members regarding assistance provided by charitable organizations, ensuring the accountability and non-medical case management during their phases of recovery. I'm talking about acute rehabilitation and retention and separation. Marines take care of their Marines from the point of injury throughout their recovery and as they transition back to duty or out of the Marine Corps. And that's all tied into that particular function. And lastly, ensuring the continuity of care throughout the phases of recovery without discrimination to illness or injury type, physical, behavioral, traumatic brain injury, etc. The list of functions that I just mentioned is not all-inclusive, but it serves to highlight how the Wounded Warrior Regiment will assist Marines and sailors during the phases of recovery and their eventual return to full duty or their separation from the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps is an adaptive organization that is constantly evolving to meet current mission requirements and the needs of the people, of its people. The Wounded Warrior Regiment is part of that change process. I'm going to explain a little bit about how we got to the Wounded Warrior Regiment today. The Marine for Life program was established in 2002 to assist Marines who were honorably discharged from active or reserve service back to civilian life by providing them with opportunities to network with mentors and employers. In January of 2005, General Hagee established a section within Marine for Life to provide support to wounded, ill, and injured Marines by providing the resources and referrals to them and their families and utilizing the Marine for Life national network of hometown links to provide outreach and transition support back to the local community. In the fall of 2005, TUMEF established the Wounded Warrior Barracks at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, to care for wounded Marines that were wounded out in the theater. The Wounded Warrior Barracks at Camp Pendleton was soon established thereafter. In 2006, our 34th Commandant, General Conway, announced in his planning guidance that the Marine Corps would stand up the Wounded Warrior Regiment with battalion headquarters on both coasts. He made it one of his top priorities. On 23 March 2007, the Marine Corps directed the establishment of the Wounded Warrior Regiment and directed that it be stood up at Marine Corps Base Quantico by 1 April 2007. So as you can see, the framework for today's Wounded Warrior Regiment was laid many, many years ago. Regarding the specific timeline for the stand-up of the Wounded Warrior Regiment, I plan to establish an initial operating capability next month and full operating capability by the end of the summer. This doesn't mean that our support that we provide to our injured is going to be diminished in any way. You know, we have a certain gold standard of support, and that's going to continue all the way through the stand-up of the regiment. So what value does the Wounded Warrior Regiment add? What is the difference between why the Marine Corps, or what is the difference between the way the Marine Corps has been supporting the injured in the past and now? Well, first of all, in the past, we have been operating under the principle of unity of effort. All of us have been working towards the same goals, but not necessarily under the same procedures or under the same commander. The Wounded Warrior Regiment brings unity of command, or continuity of command. One commander responsible for accounting for tracking, and meeting the needs of our wounded, our ill, and our injured. This brings oversight to the whole process to eliminate possible seams or cracks where Marines may fall through the system. Second is continuity of care, ensuring our Marines and sailors receive the same level of assistance and support no matter where they are in the United States. This support includes non-medical assistance, benefit information, and transition support. One process, one set of standard operating procedures that supports active duty, reserve, and separated personnel. One-stop shopping for resources, referral, and education. Third, the Wounded Warrior Regiment will focus on the seamless transition of Marines and sailors from DoD care to VA care. And we will aggressively follow up with periodic contact to ensure that the needs of those Marines and sailors are being met. Again, before I open up the floor for questions, I'm going to publicly thank a few governmental organizations for the medical support that they have provided to our Marines and sailors. And I want to add that that support has been absolutely tremendous. These organizations include the United States Navy, the United States Army. They have done absolutely superb work in the acute care and the rehabilitation phases of the recovery of our Marines and sailors. And I also want to thank the Department of Veteran Affairs for their great support that they have provided both to our active duty and our separated Marines at their VA medical centers, their polytrauma rehab centers, and the vet centers. And finally, thanks go out to the plethora of charitable organizations that assist our Marines and our families every single day. The Marine Corps takes care of its own, and it has done that since 1775, and it continues that philosophy today. The way we do it is through caring and concerned leadership. It starts at the top with our commandant and extends all the way down to the individual Marine. Our Marines care about each other like they were family, and it shows in the way they look after their fallen and wounded comrades. They demonstrate it daily in their actions, both overseas and back here at home. And with that, be happy to answer any of your questions.
Colonel Paul Krozak, Kaplan News Service. Can you provide some numbers on the number of wounded warriors, the number of personnel who will be assigned to the regiments or to the battalions at Pendleton and Lejeune, and also here at headquarters, and where the personnel is coming from?
Yeah, I'll be happy to touch on that a little bit, and if I don't answer your question directly, some of my folks can probably answer that afterwards. But one of the tasks that I've been assigned as the CO, as I was talking to our assistant commandant last week, was to look at the size of the population that's going to be within the regiment. And that's something that's still yet to be determined, yet to be hammered out. On a daily basis today, if you look at the personnel that we have starting in Lawnstool and coming back here to Bethesda, Walter Reed, Brooks Army Medical, down at Camp Lejeune, down at Camp Pendleton, there's about 370 Marines who are in those locations right now as both inpatients and outpatients. And so that is definitely the starting point of the population. Now, part of my vision with the Wounded Warrior Regiment is I want to be able to have the ability to reach back to the Marines who have already left the service. And that could include personnel who would be seriously injured or very seriously injured, and be able to get back there and contact those probably as far back as 2001 when OIF and OEF kicked off, and to be able to contact them on a monthly basis and let them know again, that we're still out there, we care about them. Now, we're doing that today, but the way the organization is set up today, we're not able to get out there and give them the type of personal touch that we're looking for.
So Joe Tabit with Al-Hura. Would you tell us, please, what kind of benefits and support are you going to provide the wounded warriors? And then, is it a long-term support or a short-term support?
It's the type of benefits and supports that we're going to provide to these Marines and sailors. Obviously, if they stay on active duty, they'll be treated like regular Marines, and they'll get the same standard support that every Marine gets. Those that depart the service, some will be transitioned over to VA care, and they will fall under the VA for those types of benefits. The ones that do not, we take care of all Marines, not just injured Marines, but also Marines who transition out of the service for other than medical reasons. So that the type of support that we'll provide is a reach-back capability. Those Marines who leave the service can reach back to the Wounded Warrior Regiment and ask for support. And from our headquarters, we can link them up with TSA support, which allows them to move, especially for those personnel who are severely injured and have to move through airports. We can link them up with the TSA so that they can get priority treatment and movement through those airports. We can link them up with the Department of Labor to ensure that they get help with finding jobs. So I think those are a couple of areas that we are able to link them up. They can reach back to us, and then we can refer them to where they can get those type of benefits or that type of support and that type of information that we may not have resident in our headquarters. Now, at the same time, we have the ability, as I just mentioned, to reach out. And my vision is to reach out to them on a monthly basis and ask them, how are you doing? What type of problems are you having? Because some of them may be hesitant to pick up that phone and give us a call. And then by our being aggressive and aggressively seeking them out, saying, what are your issues? What are your problems? We'll identify those, and then we can get them pointed in the right direction and take care of them.
Just to follow up, so is it a long-term process?
It is. Right now, we don't want to have to, again, it's taken an evolutionary process to get to where we're at today. And this has been going on for a number of years. And the Wounded Warrior Regiment, in my vision and the Commandant's vision, is going to be a long-term process. It's something that we're going to continue to need in future conflicts.
Colonel, you mentioned this regiment will help Marines navigate the PEB and MEB process and file for their TSGLI benefits. What extra help will they get in doing these activities that they have yet to receive? Will they receive a counselor now? Will they?
Yeah, there's. I know that Congress is working on some language. It's currently going through the process. One of them is the Dignity for Wounded Warriors Act, and it's going to in there specify certain for the number of injured that you have, how many physical evaluation board liaison officers you have to be able to have.
Well, let me rephrase the question. How will this regiment help wounded Marines and family members navigate the evaluation board process and file for traumatic life insurance benefits?
Well, we have a person on our staff who handles TSGLI, the Traumatic Service Group Life Insurance. So there is we have on our TO, there's a Marine captain who will be there to work those issues every single day on behalf of our Marines. We are also tied into the PEB headquarters out at Washington, and again, what we're looking at doing, I'm looking at as part of my vision, bringing on some personnel who are directly doing that every single day to be able to sit down with that Marine and go through that MEB and that PEB process and walk them through it. I think that's part of where we've had some issues in the past, is ensuring that the MEBs are complete before they go to the PEB, and then if they're not complete, then they have to be passed back to the Marine for additional dictation from the doctors or some sort of
but initially
photos.
One person to
For TSGLI, we'll have a section. It'll be headed up by a captain, and there's I think about 3 other personnel who will assist him in processing those TSGLI claims. And we don't have a backlog on those today. I mean, we're handling those on a daily basis, and those are going very, very smoothly. On the PEB side, that's an area where we're going to increase our capability. And that's part of what the Wounded Warrior Regiment brings today that it didn't have in the past, or hasn't been resident in the past, is that additional PEB. I mean, we have recognized that as an area that needs additional resources. Ma'am.
Apologies for asking this perhaps bluntly, but we don't know very much about you and your military record and your military background and where you may have served in combat. So how do I ask this nicely? Can you tell us what you know about being a wounded Marine? Have you been through, do you have other Marines that have been through the process? What do you know about it that helps you command this unit?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Well,
apologies for not knowing ahead of time.
I believe my bio is available. We'll make sure that that is available.
Could you just tell us
I
yourself?
will. I will. But I mean, I have served in several combat tours. I served during the Gulf War, also served in Afghanistan, have been to Iraq. So I do have some combat experience. I have not been injured, so I have not gone through this process. I have spent the last 2 years as the CEO of 3rd Marines, attending many of the funerals of my fallen Marines, as well as visiting all of them at Bethesda, Walter Reed, Tripler, at Brooks Army Medical Center. Now, on the staff, I do have personnel who have been wounded. My executive officer, who will be reporting next week, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Lofgren, just promoted on Monday, was seriously wounded, and he'll be, my number 2. And so he'll bring that experience to the Wounded Warrior Regiment. He spent a great deal of time in Bethesda. So the regimental staff does have, personnel who have experienced that.
When you look at this, and you have seen this because you've spent time with your other Marines, from your point of view, what is the biggest need of a wounded Marine that the regiment can help them out with? Just in very basic, human, simple terms. What do wounded Marines need?
I think what they need is one of the things that I mentioned is that that leadership, that compassionate leadership that Marines bring. Part of my vision for the Wounded Warrior Regiment, that the thing that I want to deliver to these Marines is that personal touch. I want these Marines to feel, that they're the center of the universe, and that we care about them and we're concerned about them. And I think that's why the Marine Corps has been so successful in dealing with its wounded Marines, is because our leaders care. It starts at the very top with our commandants, General Hagee and General Conway. They absolutely care. They visit their Marines, they care about their Marines, and it goes all the way down to that individual Marine level, like I mentioned, that caring and concerned leadership. I think that's what the Marines know that they're going to get. They know that we're going to take care of them, that we're going to look out for them. And I really feel if you look down, they're obviously going to get great medical care. We know that, but I think the difference is leadership.
How has the Marine Corps avoided then the sort of Walter Reed problem? The outpatient issues or have you had Marines caught up in that?
Well, we have Marines that have been at Walter Reed, Bethesda. We're at, our Marines and sailors are at all the major medical treatment facilities.
I guess the question is, what's the Marine Corps learned from that side of it? What have you seen there that you're going to ensure doesn't happen to you?
Well, as I mentioned, I think we have made our own observations, some of which I mentioned in my statement. But I think also Congress has identified several areas, and as I mentioned, in their language, they're going to lay out some things for us that the Wounded Warrior Regiment is going to have to comply with in terms of case managers, service member advocates, the PEBLOs, PEB liaison officers. All those have been dictated. I think from a Marine Corps perspective, it's our leadership. It's our being able to get out there and understand what's going on. We have Marines. We were just discussing it earlier. One of the former battalion commanders who's down at Quantico, he left command a number of years ago. He still contacts every one of his wounded Marines. He stays in contact with them, and I think that's the kind of leadership.
And if I could just ask one very more quick thing, and then I'll be done. When a Marine goes into the Wounded Warrior Regiment, what should they expect in terms of still being a Marine?
The Marines that report down, and I have one of the battalion commanders, and he can probably better answer that afterwards. And by the way, we have selected both of the new battalion commanders, one for each coast. But what they can expect is to be treated like Marines. I mean, they still have the Marines that are down at Camp Lejeune and Camp Pendleton. They have reveille at 0530, and they get in uniform, those who are able to, and they fall out, and they are expected to conduct themselves like Marines. Now, they are given appropriate tasks that they can handle based on their injury. And, I mean, you know, pardon me?
Some examples?
Well, we have some Marines who are, that go to work and answer phones, stand duty, that can act as drivers and drive other Marines to their appointments. We have Marines down there that, as part of their therapy, are actually working at elementary schools. I had 4 of my Marines that were working at the elementary school, which was located right next to my regimental headquarters. 4 injured Marines as part of their recovery process. 2 of them left the Marine Corps to go be teachers, and so I thought that was pretty good. So those Marines are expected to act like Marines, and you know, they get haircuts, and you know, again, they're given duties that are commensurate with their abilities.
Have you incorporated any specific aspects of the program, any lessons from the whole Walter Reed experience? Because it's being established right now after months of this, and I noticed one of your priorities seems to be helping Marines navigate all the bureaucracy, which is one of the issues people complained about.
Well, one of our goals is to help Marines cut through the bureaucracy that's out there, the red tape. I mean, our ability to have one commander, one person responsible with all the expertise located in one headquarters. We'll know the ins and outs of the systems. We'll be able to get those Marines through the processes as quickly and as efficiently as possible. The way it's currently done today, there are several commands that are involved, and all of them are not necessarily aware of how the systems work. And I think that's why some of the cases seem to be held up and take longer than they should. You know, we'll be able to streamline that process. You know, we're also looking at having a single database, a single tracking system for these Marines. I think that's important, and it's not easy to do because we have Marines that are being passed through Army facilities, Air Force hands, from the DoD into the VA, and all of that, you know, helps to complicate the issue. And part of the vision of the Wounded Warrior Regiment is to get to a single database, a single tracking program, again, to help streamline that process and get Marines either returned to duty or back to civilian life.
Was that part of the original vision, or were there, you know, were there any revisions where you looked at the Walter Reed experience and said, we ought to take a look at this? That's a problem we hadn't thought about.
No, I would definitely say I've been doing this now for a little over 2.5 weeks. But while everything was happening and was in the news, I mean, I read everything that I could. I read all the reports, so I've seen all the comments, all the recommendations from all the, and I'm in touch with the. Sat in on a briefing yesterday last week, with the Commandant as he was briefed by the independent review group that Secretary Gates has put out there. So I am fully in touch with all of the issues that were brought up from the Walter Reed, as well as the recommendations. And I think it's fortuitous as we stand up the Wounded Warrior Regiment to be able to learn from that experience and be able to incorporate those recommendations into the future vision of the Wounded Warrior Regiment. So I can assure you that we are certainly looking at all of those recommendations. And again, as I mentioned, this is an evolving regiment. This regiment is going to change as time goes on, as those boards start to report back and they make their recommendations. You know, I'm not going to be afraid to change the regiment, the direction of the regiment, the organization of the regiment, to ensure that the needs of our Marines and sailors are being met.
Colonel, how many have gone through the program since it's been established, the Wounded Warrior program? How many are at the barracks right now, Lejeune and Pendleton? And do you have any numbers on how many have returned to active duty as opposed to those who've transitioned out?
I can't answer specifically, you know, all those questions. Perhaps one of my personnel, when I get done, can answer that. But I can say right now that at the Wounded Warrior Battalion on the East Coast, we have about 85 Marines that are located down there, and we have about 14 Marines on the West Coast. The way the Camp Pendleton Wounded Warrior Battalion operates is they have more Marines that are assigned out to their units or back home with their families. At Camp Lejeune, it's a little bit more centralized. Those other questions that you ask, I guess I would refer to my staff afterwards, so I don't give you incorrect figures. Please.
It sounds like you've got two missions here that you're then going for, the ones for wounded Marines that are still in the Marine Corps, and then tracking the progress of Marines that have left the Marine Corps. Is that correct?
Yes. Our primary focus, and I want to make this very clear, is to take care of the wounded, ill, and injured Marines. That's where the priority will always go. The other Marines who have transitioned out, we still have again, that was under the Marine for Life program, which is going to remain under the Wounded Warrior Regiment. And we basically operate with we have a small cell right now. We have a website where the Marines can access that website, and they can get most of their information from the website. But if that doesn't answer it, they can pick up the phone, call the Marine for Life cell, and we will track down and answer their question for them. So it is kind of a dual purpose, but without a doubt, the priority goes to the wounded, ill, and injured.
You were talking about having the Marines go to revelry and assigning them jobs. Some of that already happens, though. A lot of the wounded Marines at Balboa Medical Center, for example, some of them work in the public affairs office or have been assigned duties sort of on light duty around.
Correct.
So some of this is already operating or has been for a while, right?
Absolutely. All we're going to do is put in, again, the key points here is unity of command, continuity of care, being able to work the transition from the VA, from DoD over to VA. I got a couple more items that helps to separate the way we're doing business. We're going to do business today and from here on with the Wounded Warrior Regiment. One of the things that we've looked at, and it will probably come out in some of the review group recommendations, is we're looking at establishing Tiger teams at the regimental headquarters. And those Tiger teams will be able to, if we identify a Marine, let's say he's out in Chicago, he's away from a major military medical treatment facility, and he needs some on-the-ground presence, I'll grab 2 or 3 people off of my staff. We'll form a Tiger team, and I'll fly them to Chicago to work directly with that civilian institution or local community to ensure that that Marine is met. We're going to work to develop a comprehensive, integrated effort to work with private organizations, governmental organizations, charitable organizations. Right now, that's all kind of being done piecemeal. I mean, we're not as efficient and effective as we can. So we're going to grab all of that and come up with an integrated, comprehensive plan to be able to work all that together. And as I mentioned, the Wounded Warrior Regiment will be ready, up and ready by the time Congress passes its congressional language to be able to address the concerns that it has and ensure that all of their concerns are being met, in addition to the feedback that we get from all the ongoing review groups. Now, if no further questions, I want to thank you all, and I'll make my staff available to answer any additional detailed questions that you have. Thank you.